voice from the punk.
Hello everybody, I hope you're well. So in my last talking to you video, I told you my top 10 tips for saving for your backpacking adventure. This is to maximize your earnings so you accumulate as much money as possible before your trip. In this video, I'm going to tell you my top 10 budgeting tips for your backpacking adventure, so all that money that you've saved lasts as long as possible and you don't blow it all in one go on just unnecessary things. So number 1, you must come up with a daily budget or have a daily budget in mind. Do some research of the country that you are just about to visit and come up with a realistic daily budget. When you have a figure in mind of what you roughly should be spending, you're less likely to go crazy and forget that your bank balance is not infinite. Number 2 is to actually keep a track of your spending. The easiest way to do this is to always have your daily budget that you had in mind out in your purse in cash. That way you can see throughout the day how much is going and always how much you have left. Alternatively, if you are super conscious or don't trust yourself or are just ridiculously organized, there are a bunch of free apps that you can use which help you track your spending. You put in your daily budget and then you say exactly how much you've spent on what, and it obviously adds it all up for you, tells you if you're over your budget, under your budget, and these can be really good for tracking your spending. Number 3 is to live as cheaply as possible. Cheap accommodation. Couchsurfing is an app where you can stay on a local's couch, or if you're lucky, even a spare bed for free. There is obviously the option to camp if you have a tent, and of course there are hostels. I tend to look at Hostelworld or Hostel Bookers before I arrive in a new location to look at the average prices, if nothing else. I tend not to book in advance unless it's peak season or if I know I'm definitely going to be there for a definite date, but most of the time when I'm traveling I don't know exact dates, so I don't like to book in advance. But if I'm looking online first at what the prices are, I know that when I get there I'm not going to be ripped off. Number 4 is to eat as cheaply as possible. In Southeast Asia, it's often just cheapest and easiest to actually eat a meal out, which is absolutely fantastic. However, in countries like Australia, this is not the case. But most decent hostels are equipped with a kitchen. Use it. Number 5 is to physically travel around as cheaply as possible. Always check out all the options available when it comes to travel. Offers for private shuttles will constantly be thrusted in your face when you are backpacking, but if you want to save money, always check to see if it's not too much hassle to get a public bus or a train to your next destination. Sleeper services are always better as well because obviously you save a whole night's accommodation. If you are going on a particularly long cross-country flight, it's definitely worth checking Skyscanner and STA Travel. You'd be surprised at how cheap some domestic flights can actually be. Number 6 is to do activities as cheap as possible. Like the private shuttles, you are always going to have tours thrusted in your face as a backpacker. Sometimes these are great and well worth the money, but a lot of the time these are a massive rip-off and you find out that you can organize a trip pretty much identical to the tour by organising it yourself, and it would just be a fraction of the price. So talk to people in your hostel or people in the area to find the cheapest way to do an activity or the cheapest operator that provides a particular activity. Also, countries like Australia have their own version of Groupon. I know I mentioned this in the saving, but you can actually use it when you're on the road as well. There may be activities that you want to do. For example, back at the beginning of the year when I wanted to learn how to surf, I just went on Groupon and they had something there, and it was literally a fraction of the price of what it would have been if I were to just have booked a surfing lesson usually. So it's definitely worth checking that out for cheap activities as well. Number 7 is to share your costs. This is obviously much easier if you are traveling with friends, but even if you're traveling by yourself, it's still very much doable. Literally just ask people in your hostel if they want to team up for food, activities, lifts, pre-drinks. Most likely outcome will be a yes, because believe it or not, everyone is trying to save money and you also make friends at the same time, which is great. Number 8 is to research the best place to do a particular activity so you can spread them out throughout your trip. For example, say you're doing the east coast of Australia and you know you want to do a skydive. Research before you go the best place or the place that you would most like to do a skydive, because otherwise you might arrive in Sydney and be like, oh my god, I'm going to do a skydive, and then you realise that you get to Mission Beach and you're like, oh, but this is the best place to do it, damn it, like I want to do it again. Sometimes you do end up doing the thing twice. This has happened to me before. You didn't do your research of where the best place to do it was, so although you're having a great time, like you're spending money unnecessarily on these once in a lifetime experiences. So just research where you're going before you go, and if there is like a particular activity that you want to do in a particular place, sort of save it for that place. Spread out your activities throughout your trip. You want to keep having fun. Number 9 is to just do things for free. Hiking, wandering, beaching are all free activities and are great ways to explore the country you're in without spending any money. Don't think that you have to spend money to have a good time. And my final one, number 10, is to work abroad. If you find yourself running out of money or you want to stay longer than you originally planned, consider getting a job in the location that you're in. Hostels are a great way to earn extra cash, whether you're doing promotion work or housekeeping work for accommodation. I'm actually working for accommodation at the moment in this hostel right here. It's Base Backpackers in Sydney. If any of you are in Sydney, just like come and see me because that's so much fun. I actually have met a few people through people watching my YouTube videos whilst I've been here, and it's just been crazy because that's just crazy. I work on reception here for accommodation, which this is the first time I've ever worked for a hostel, and it was my first shift last night and I was like, oh, don't know what I'm doing, but it's so fun. And this is my home. This is not actually my bed. That's my bed right there. I do have a bottom bunk, thank goodness. It's nice, it's roomy, it's airy, and I like the hostel, and I'm loving Sydney at the moment. Oh yeah, that's another thing that I haven't told you. Immigration changed their rules. Cutting a long story short, I cannot complete my regional work before my visa expires. It sucked, and I was like, okay. I was just like, well, there's no point in me staying in the middle of nowhere, volunteering for the rest of my time in Australia when I'm not even going to get my second year visa. So I booked a flight to Sydney quite literally a few days ago. That's the updated situation. Follow me on Snapchat and Instagram and you get these updates like immediately. But I've just realised that I've gone massively off track. So sorry, back to number 10, working abroad. It is worth thinking about whether you think you're gonna maybe want to work abroad before you leave for your trip, because there's places like Australia and New Zealand where you need a visa to work in that country. So think about it before you go. If you think it's something that is worth doing, then definitely get yourself a working holiday visa as opposed to a tourist visa. It's also worth thinking about if you are going to countries which don't speak English, to take a TEFL course before you go, because another good way to earn extra cash is to teach English, and that's a very rewarding experience as well. And that is it for my top 10 tips for budgeting on your backpacking adventure. It's no fun to get caught up with your budget and just be constantly worrying about how much you're spending, but it's even less fun to completely run out of money on your trip and have to go home. So all I can say is do your research of the country that you're about to visit so you don't get any financial shocks. Make sure you have more than enough money in your bank account before your trip, and although you should keep an eye on your bank balance, it should definitely not be something that you're constantly stressing about. I hope that you found this video useful. Give it a thumbs up if you did. If you are currently saving for your backpacking adventure, keep going. Your sacrifices will be worth it in the end, I promise. Saving and budgeting are all a big part of the backpacking experience, and this is a big part of how your fun-filled trip is actually teaching you life lessons about money and being resourceful, etc, etc. My next video may be another Central America vlog, or it may be another tips video like this. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry about the last video, how it cut off when I just got a tattoo. My camera ran out of battery, which was good at the time. I got a I don't know if you can see, I got a little crescent moon on my foot. My feet are dirty right now, but I got a little crescent moon on my foot, and I took this photo for my mum because I was super scared to show her because she doesn't like tattoos. So I was like, I'm gonna take it in the middle of the blue ocean to make it look more appealing for her. So yeah, that was the tattoo I got from the last video, and I really like it. I really wanted clouds, but when I was researching cloud tattoos, they just didn't look good. It didn't look like what I wanted on my skin, and I really like moons, and that there's nothing more deep and thoughtful behind it. I just really like crescent moons, and so I got one on my foot. My next video could be another Central America vlog, or it could be another tips video like this in this new hostel setting, my new home, which is so exciting. I don't know yet what it's gonna be, but subscribe so you don't miss it, and I will see you then. Bye!